and recovery of the team as well. So don't go anywhere. We are just waiting on a couple of major events here, enjoying some views of the crew inside the capsule, as you can see on screen.
Dragon, deorbit sequence start in 5 minutes.
Copy, what's up?
All right, so we are continuing to track the return of Crew 2 and the astronauts back to planet Earth. We just heard we are just moments away from entering the deorbit sequence. We did a quick fact check on some of the burns that we've been monitoring throughout today's flight as we've been providing continuous coverage, and we did get confirmation that that departure phase burn, which we have discussed, takes the Dragon out of the co-elliptic phasing that is really matching the International Space Station with both the perigee and apogee, and puts it on a course with that landing site, which is Pensacola, Florida. That did happen, so we do have confirmation that all of the phasing burns, the departure burns that are necessary to line Dragon up for the deorbit sequence, which we're hearing is about to take place here momentarily, that we are all lined up. All of the burns have taken place. Dragon is in a good phase, a good position to get ready for this next sequence of very critical events.
And what that means is we have just one more burn left, the deorbit burn.
Right.
A couple of things need to happen, again, before we start this. In about 3 minutes, we'll begin to maneuver or slew the Dragon to the appropriate attitude in order to prep for claw separation and then trunk separation. After that, we'll slew back. The four forward bulkhead thrusters underneath the nose cone will fire for about 16.5 minutes. That will be what slows down Dragon and brings its altitude down enough to start to hit some of the atmospheric particles of Earth. And then from there, we'll start to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, enter that blackout period for about 7 minutes, where there's just plasma being built up around the exterior of Dragon. So we'll lose communications for about 7 minutes. After that, we'll regain communications. We have parachute deploys. We have two sets. First up is the drogue chutes that will take the Dragon capsule velocity from about 350 miles per hour to 120 miles an hour. From there, the main chutes will deploy, taking us from 120 miles an hour down to about 15 for a nice soft landing off the Gulf of Mexico.
So that is going to kick off here very shortly. We're coming up on just about an hour from the predicted splashdown time. We did hear there were slight adjustments in some of the sequence, and that sequence, the deorbit sequence itself, about to begin here momentarily, starting with the claw separation and trunk separation, but that'll kick off. Once that sequence starts, it's about an hour timeline from the time that sequence starts to the time that we are in the water. We're still targeting 7:33 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, so again, everything that we just talked about is going to happen in that hour. So,
right.
We saw the crew enjoy their meal. They donned their spacesuits once again, and they really had a bit of a respite before these very dynamic portions of the operation. So things will definitely get exciting here in the next couple of minutes.
And we'll be with you every step of the way. We're expecting communications with the crew throughout each of these different phases: confirmation of trunk separation, the claw opening, the claw separation, trunk separation. When the deorbit burn starts, it's going to be quite a long time that those forward bulkhead Dracos will fire. It is the longest burn of the entire flight. The 8.5-hour journey from undocking from the International Space Station to splashing down off the coast of Florida, 16.5 minutes. In this particular phasing, because of the short flight, that is a much longer burn. With some of the longer phases, when we're talking about 18 or 19 hours, it gets a lot shorter.
Sequence start.
There you go.
Copy.
So again, that was confirmation of the beginning of the deorbit sequence. Again, it involves a number of different items to occur. Right now, again, the Dragon is starting to maneuver itself, orient itself to prep for claw and trunk separation.
So the first step is the claw separation. Right now, we're in the preparation phase. This is an automatic sequence now that we're in the deorbit sequence, which just kicked off. It's an automatic sequence that starts with claw separation.
The claw is essentially the umbilical that routes power to the Dragon capsule. It's connected as part of the trunk. So we'll disconnect that first. Pop off the trunk, so to speak, and once that happens, the Dragon capsule is running exclusively on its own internal batteries.
Right. And there's plenty to spare, too, through the 6 months or so that the Dragon has been attached to the International Space Station. It really hasn't had to rely on its own power at all. The International Space Station has gigantic basketball court-sized solar arrays, in addition to a couple of new solar arrays that some of the Crew 2 astronauts themselves installed and deployed on the outside of the station, all providing power not only to the International Space Station, but to the Dragon while it's been docked. During the docked phase, the Dragon itself is connected via umbilical that provides communication and, of course, power to the vehicle. So the batteries were fully charged for the ride home, and then even upon separation, you can see, you were able to see through some of the views, the trunk itself has a series of solar arrays that are on one side of the trunk, able to provide a small amount of power throughout this phase of flight.
We are expecting to get confirmation of claw separation, and then shortly after, trunk separation.
We did hear claw separation is confirmed. Dragon is now automatically going into the preparations for trunk separation.
Trunk itself, separating it exposes the heat shield. Again, that is very necessary to protect the capsule from the high temperatures that it will be experiencing during re-entry.
Dragon, nominal trunk jettison.
Copy, nominal trunk jettison.
It's a great way to start off the deorbit sequence. The trunk is off, and everything is going smoothly so far. Coming up next, we're going to be reorienting the Dragon and then starting up the deorbit burn.
Right now we are in a slew. So now that the Dragon has physically separated the trunk has confirmed to have separated itself from the Dragon capsule. That slew had Dragon oriented slightly to the side relative to how it is orbiting to allow there not to be a conjunction between the two bodies as they now enter into the deorbit phase. So now the Dragon itself is slewing into a position with the forward bulkhead Dracos pointing straight at the velocity bar, or the V-bar, essentially the same direction that the Dragon is orbiting, to be prepared to fire the 4 bulkhead Dracos for 16.5 minutes. That sequence should be coming up here in about 2 minutes. We should be hearing the confirmation that the forward bulkhead Dracos are firing, and we'll monitor that, make sure that the deorbit burn is good and that we have a good burn. Once that burn is complete, Dragon is committed to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and splash down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, that's going to be the last time that we fire the forward bulkhead thrusters on the Dragon vehicle. And so, again, after we finish the deorbit burn, the nose cone, which is currently open right now, we're going to be closing that. It takes a couple of minutes to close, and then it latches shut. This protects the avionics and all of the items underneath the nose cone, but we'll latch that shut because we're not going to be firing the Dracos anymore. And then Dragon really will be on its trajectory towards the primary landing site off the coast of Pensacola.
And we're hearing confirmation from the flight control teams here in Hawthorne. The Dragon capsule is now switched its attitude. It's slewed into the deorbit position and is in the deorbit attitude. Now standing by for about a minute from now, where the Dragon itself will fire those 4 forward bulkhead Dracos, beginning the deorbit sequence, a very critical part of today's flight.
So yeah, we will be bringing continuous coverage all the way through splashdown and recovery of the crew. On screen right now is a view of Hawthorne Mission Control. Folks are starting to gather around, anticipating Crew 2's return, again, off the coast of Florida in under an hour now.
That's right. We are in the home stretch.
So it is worth mentioning again that the Dragon vehicle itself is a very sophisticated, intelligent vehicle. The maneuvers that it has been doing throughout its undocking phase and part of its downhill sequences really are autonomous. The crew are definitely trained to help support Dragon in case things go off nominal, but really for the most part, Dragon is piloting itself. It knows where it's at, where it wants to go, and it's making all these minor adjustments as needed. So the crew is in good hands. They are definitely on the trajectory they need to be to return home safely back here on Earth.
So we're just moments away. Again, the deorbit sequence has started right on time. So we had a confirmed claw separation and trunk separation. Dragon is now in an orientation with the forward bulkhead Dracos pointed where they need to be for this very critical burn, the deorbit burn. We've been waiting for this moment for quite some time. A lot of the departure burns that we've been following over the past couple of hours have been really in anticipation of this moment. We've been following weather all along the way. Because once we start this deorbit burn, really there's no going back. That means that the Dragon itself is committed to return back to Earth. And confirm that the deorbit burn has started. Initial checks show that the dynamics of that burn are looking pretty good. This is going to be a long burn, 16.5 minutes. So a quick recap, within the last 10 minutes, a lot has happened. The Dragon has jettisoned its trunk and initiated the deorbit burn, which started now at about 6:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. For these operations, Dragon and SpaceX closely coordinate with the United States Coast Guard to establish a 10 nautical mile safety zone to ensure public safety and for the safety of those involved in the recovery operations, as well as the crew on board their returning spacecraft. Multiple notices are issued to the mariners in advance and during recovery operations, and the Coast Guard patrol boats are deployed to discourage boaters from entering the splashdown zones. We really want to stress to the public the need to respect this safety zone. Recovering a spacecraft from the water is a hazardous operation, and any other boats interfering increases the risk to astronauts in the capsule, the teams working to recover them from the water, and the safety of those that come too close. For the safety of the crew and your safety, we recommend that you sit back and watch, and we'll be bringing you the best possible coverage of our astronauts' homecoming.
And like I mentioned earlier, this deorbit burn is the last time that those 4 forward Draco thrusters will fire. Dragon Endeavour has not yet entered Earth's atmosphere yet. This deorbit burn is what will line the vehicle up and put it on its final trajectory to the landing site in the Gulf of Mexico, just off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. So right now, Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas, they're using their screens to keep tabs on the burn durations, Draco thruster firings, and trajectory details like entry angle, capsule perigee, and how much distance remaining until the deorbit burn is terminated. They have access to that with the displays in front of them. Again, Dragon is essentially flying itself, so all the crew has to do is stay strapped into their seats and keep tabs on things. So we're waiting to hear the call out for nominal burn to confirm completion of the deorbit burn for Dragon Endeavour. That's going to be coming up in about 12 minutes, 13 minutes. So still a bit longer to go on this deorbit burn.
That's right. We're coming up on about 3 minutes into the deorbit burn, and it is a very long burn, particularly with this phasing, which is the short trip from undocking to splashdown that doesn't include a sleep period or anything for the crew. They're really in it for the long haul. These forward bulkhead Dracos need to fire for about 16.5 minutes. We've seen very similar profiles for some of the other missions. Crew 1 and I believe Crew 2 had a pretty similar profile, or not Crew 2, Demo 2 had a very similar profile, about roughly the same period of time from the time of undocking to the time of splashdown. So it seems to be a pretty popular profile. So we'll just sit back and make sure that the deorbit burn is continuing to look good, and so far teams are tracking that it is. We're about 4 minutes in at this point, which is into a 16.5 minute burn.
And on screen are our 4 astronauts on board Dragon. Left to right, Issa's Thomas Pesquet. He is the mission specialist. Then we have the pilot, Megan MacArthur, and the commander, Shane Kimbrough, both from NASA. And then we have JAXA astronaut, Akihiko Hoshide, who is also the mission specialist. So again, they are both, they are all in their suits, strapped in, and eagerly waiting their return and a breath of fresh Earth air in about 45 minutes. Oh, excuse me, 45 minutes until splashdown, then about an hour until they can egress the vehicle.
Each of them has had a long journey on board the International Space Station. They've been in space for 199 days. 198 of those were attached to the International Space Station. Each of them have had very critical roles in some of the activities that have taken place on board. Thomas Pesquet just handed over command of the International Space Station. He was commander for just a little bit for the very beginning of Expedition 66. He took over command of the International Space Station from Aki Hoshide, who had it for quite some time during Expedition 65. He was the International Space Station commander. Of course, we heard that Shane Kimbrough is the commander for the Crew Dragon vehicle, and each of those 3 have conducted several spacewalks on board the International Space Station. There have been 4 spacewalks completed that each of them took part in. Thomas Pesquet taking part in all 4 of them. There was one spacewalk that was to set up one of the station's power systems with a modification kit in preparation for future solar arrays. That was done by Thomas Pesquet and Aki Hoshide, the first time that international astronauts not from the U.S. or Russia were part of a spacewalk, so they did make history there. And then, of course, Shane Kimbrough conducted 3 of those himself, so he has 9 spacewalks under his belt, and he has one of the all-time records for most amount of time in space for any U.S. astronaut. He's sitting at 388 days of his career total over his 3 space flights to the International Space Station and as part of a shuttle mission as well. Six minutes into the 16-minute deorbit burn. We're looking good.
Yeah, earlier we had a out-of-plane burn, and that was also used as a propellant wasting burn. And so we dumped a lot of mass with the propellants that we don't need anymore. That, in combination with the trunk jettison that we just had, sheds a lot of mass from the vehicle. It actually makes this deorbit burn a lot more efficient, so that way we can be as efficient as possible to slow down the vehicle, bring its altitude down in order for it to begin its re-entry phase.
This is a very critical phase. We've seen a lot of action over these past couple of hours as we've been providing some continuous coverage. It all started with some hatch closure where the Dragon crew said goodbye to the crew on board the International Space Station. Only 3 crew members on board now. That includes Commander Anton Shkaplerov from Roscosmos, as well as Pyotr Dubrov of Roscosmos, and then Mark Vande Hei, who is pulling the long haul here. He's going to be on station for almost a year, and he'll be really responsible for the handover that the Crew 2 astronauts would have done if they were to have the Crew 3 astronauts arrive before them. But again, we've mentioned this a couple of times, Andy, throughout our coverage. Part of the reason why we're executing a deorbit burn right now, heading for a splashdown off the coast of Pensacola, is because the weather looks really, really good. And weather is one of those primary driving factors for taking a crew home. If the weather looks this good with very calm, you said lake-like states is what we heard on the loops, very calm winds, and of course we did get confirmation that the skies are clear as well. So we might even get some pretty good views from the WB-57 as well as the ship, the recovery ship Go Navigator, as the crew is entering. It's really just too perfect to pass up.
Yeah, and that's really sort of the story here. we originally planned to launch Crew 3 prior to Crew 2 coming home, and they were going to do the handoff in person at the International Space Station. Weather wasn't quite cooperating with us Halloween weekend, but again, Gary, you mentioned this recovery weather is too good to pass up.
Right.
And so the teams that have been supporting this mission, or really both missions, really this is a testament to their flexibility to be able to get this together and make sure that the Crew 2 can come home safely in the midst of, again, this really optimal weather.
Very, very true. And again, we are monitoring the weather, and it does look good out in the Gulf Coast. Part of the reason that we're landing the crew right now in the Gulf is because the weather over there looks good, and the reason why we're going to wait to launch the Crew 3 astronauts no earlier than November 10th is because the weather out there is something that we continue to monitor. It's not only the weather out at the East Coast, off the coast of Cape Canaveral in Florida that we're looking at, but really the weather all along the ascent corridor has to cooperate as well. So that includes all along the eastern seaboard, that includes the North Pacific. All of that has to look good because really in any abort scenario, you'd be looking at the crew escaping from the top of the Falcon 9 rocket using those Super Dracos. We were talking about Super Dracos a little earlier, and splashing down anywhere along those sites. And so you have to make sure that the weather is cooperating really all along the way. So it's got to be the right conditions.
Yeah, there are multiple teams that plan for all sorts of these types of contingencies. It is fantastic when things go well, as we've been seeing for a very long time, and we love that. But we want to make sure that in case anything were to go awry, we have plans for that. And weather, again, is one of the things that we need to make sure we pay attention to. We're about six minutes away from finishing this deorbit burn. Again, this is the last burn for the Dragon vehicle. After this, we'll close the nose cone, flip the Dragon around, and start to head into the Earth's atmosphere. Really, after this, it's really about 30 minutes, about 30 or 40 minutes until we see the Dragon capsule in the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to happen very quickly.
It is. A lot is going to happen. In fact, when it comes to the parachutes, they are that sequence is automatic, but it happens seconds from each other. The mortars themselves are deployed to release 2 drogue parachutes that slows the Dragon capsule down from 350 miles per hour initially. Those are the right after we get outside of the blackout zone, which is when the Dragon itself is entering through the atmosphere, engulfed in plasma, so the communications can't get through. But right when we exit out of that and we get an acquisition of signal and are able to talk to the crew inside Dragon again, they should be traveling at roughly 350 miles an hour. But once we deploy those drogue chutes, all of that's going to really happen at about 7:29 p.m. Pacific time, 10:29 p.m. Eastern. The drogue parachutes will deploy. They'll stay out for a little bit, and then 40 seconds later, the 4 main parachutes will deploy. And from 350 miles an hour, with that sequence, that's happening really in the matter of 1 minute with all of the parachutes. That'll gently slow down the Dragon and its crew down to about 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, and we mentioned safety. We've been talking about safety throughout this whole broadcast. As soon as the Dragon capsule hits the water, one of the first things that happens is the main chutes get cut. And what this means is today there are really no winds, essentially, but we wouldn't want the Dragon capsule to be pulled by wind in any direction, so we'll cut the parachutes immediately upon splashdown. And there's a boat that is part of its main function is to go out and recover that parachute.
That cutting of the main parachutes happens automatically on board the Dragon, but when we were talking about some of the physical buttons that the crew have on their display panel, one of those physical buttons, which is really important to have instead of having it on a touchscreen that you have to navigate to, really easy access to a button that says cut the parachutes. If for whatever reason they weren't to automatically do it themselves, which we've seen on some of the previous crewed missions, they did automatically cut. They do have the ability to do so.
Yeah, these parachutes have been tested hundreds of times And so, the design parachutes can be tricky, but we've used these parachutes as a part of all the cargo missions prior to the upgraded Dragon, and now we're using them as part of this operations too.
As you mentioned, right after the Dragon splashes down in the ocean, there are two what are called fast boats that are part of the prime recovery team that'll immediately go out to the capsule. One of the boats will go right over to the capsule and start outfitting it with some rigging equipment. They'll do a sniff check to make sure there are no hazardous gases that are leaking from the spacecraft, make sure it's safe for the next series of events where the Go Navigator's recovery ship will go out and hoist it onto the ship itself. But you were mentioning the other fast boat. It serves as a backup to that boat just in case it were, some motor function were to happen and it can't get out to the capsule in time. But its prime function, if the other boat is looking pretty good, is to go collect the parachutes.
Yes. So again, about 2 minutes.
2 minutes
for the end of the final burn. The Dragon and the crew have gone through a number of burns throughout today's downhill phase. Again, we are nearing the end of sort of the marathon here. So this must be exciting for the crew on board the Dragon as well, knowing that this is the last burn that they're going to feel, last burn that they're going to hear. And after this, it's really going to be a smooth sailing, so to speak, into the Atlantic Ocean, or into the Gulf of Mexico.
So the words we're waiting to hear right now are nominal deorbit burn. Those are very important words that'll be sent over to the crew. Right now, the nose cone has been opened to expose the 4 forward bulkhead Dracos that have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting with this deorbit burn, pointing straight at the velocity bar. It's a retro firing of the thrusters to slow the vehicle down and really ultimately make contact with the atmosphere. That's the point of this burn. But as long as we have a good burn, it'll be just a matter of a couple of minutes. It's a very quick sequence to close the nose cone. It's a very important function to close the nose cone. It protects the forward bulkhead Dracos. It protects the docking mechanism that's been used to keep Dragon attached to the International Space Station for 6 months. It protects some of the guidance and navigation equipment. Of course, this vehicle is reusable. We're seeing it now. This is a reused vehicle. It was used originally on the Demo 2 mission. So all critical functions that need to be protected before it slews to the position where the heat shield is pointed right towards the Earth and does the heavy lifting of protecting the capsule and, of course, more importantly, the crew inside from the 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit that's going to be experienced as the Dragon capsule enters the Earth.
As part of the recovery operations after...
Dragon, deorbit burn complete. Performance nominal. Nose cone closure has been initiated.
Copy all. Good deorbit burn.
That is the news that we were looking for, Andy. Nominal deorbit burn. That means that burn did its job. You see, immediately we're going into closing the nose cone. So now that it's done its job, the forward bulkhead Dracos will not be fired again. We're going to close the nose cone and protect some of those critical equipment and get the Dragon oriented in a position ready for entry.
Yeah, so it takes a couple of minutes for the nose cone to close. It doesn't just swing shut. And so it'll be closed, and then there will be latches that will secure it into position. From there, we will slew the Dragon into his orientation to make sure that the heat shields are facing forward, so to speak. The heat shield will be what meets the Earth's atmosphere first. It'll absorb and dissipate all of that heat upon re-entry, and then we'll go through the blackout period where we won't have comms from Dragon to ground or ground to Dragon. Then after that, we'll deploy our parachutes and land.
So the atmosphere is going to do a lot of the work here to slow the vehicle down. We're still close to orbital velocity. Of course, we're a little bit slower because we're dropping in altitude, and that is purposeful. The Dragon and the crew inside is now committed to enter the Earth's atmosphere and splash down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. Dragon systems look good. The crew is monitoring every step of the way and checking in and saying that they are following closely. Everything's looking good on that end, and of course the weather is cooperating, which is super essential. So we're about to enter into the atmosphere and slow down all the way down to 350 miles per hour. It's going to be a number of minutes for that procedure to take place. It takes about 7 minutes from the time that we enter into the Earth's atmosphere and lose the signal with the crew. So don't worry, that is normal. We expect a loss of signal for about 7 minutes. The communications can't get through the plasma that's engulfing the Dragon on its way in. But it should be about a 7-minute period as predicted, right? So there might be a little extra lag time in there just depending on a series of events. But they'll be calling to the crew at the end of that anticipated period to check in and hear how that sequence went and make sure everything is good for the next series of automatic events, which is the deployment of the parachutes and eventual splashdown.
Yeah, it is important to note that prior to the deorbit sequence, we did hear communications from the crew to the core here. They were updated on timelines, so the crew onboard Dragon knows exactly what to expect too. They know when the blackout period is going to happen. They know when approximately the signal is going to be coming back, and we typically hear pings sometimes from Dragon to ground, and sometimes from ground to Dragon, waiting for the acquisition of signal. So there are no surprises. Every party that's supporting this mission is well aware of what is about to happen.
So it's going to be a number of minutes until we actually get into the entry sequence. Right now we're coming up at about 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's about roughly another 20 minutes until we actually get into that entry interface. So it's still some time. We are right now in a good position with the deorbit burn sequence initiated, and it puts Dragon in an orientation getting ready. We can see it slewing now to get ready for that entry prep. Really with the heat shield pointed towards the Earth. So we're in the final stretch here, Andy. It's really happening.
So we should get confirmation, if not already, that the nose cone has closed, and we are getting confirmation nose cone is closed. And so again, we are slewing to the right orientation, and during this for the next 19 minutes or so, Dragon's altitude is decreasing, and then once we get low enough and start building that friction, we will enter the blackout communication. So around 7:19 p.m. Pacific time is when we're expecting the blackout communications period.
So as we begin the second half of entry, Dragon is now beginning to flush nitrox into the cabin and continuing to top off Shane, Megan, Aki, and Tomas' suits with cool air. Again, this is what will allow the cabin temperature to remain comfortable while external temperatures reach 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat shield is pointed forward, leading the capsule to that landing site.
Yes, and we are targeting the primary site tonight off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. So very exciting. Under 30 minutes, or just over 30 minutes. 7:33 p.m. Pacific time is our targeted splashdown time.
Right. We did hear that call up to the crew that we're still targeting that same exact site, even with slight shifts in some of the other events, particularly with the loss and acquisition of signal, that 7-minute blackout period that we were talking about. But all in all, we're still looking at that same time for splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico. So stay with us. We're going to continue to provide coverage through this very dynamic sequence. We will, even after splashdown, we're going to remain on air. We want to make sure that the crew is safe once they splash down off the Gulf of Mexico. So once they splash down, it takes less than an hour in nominal recovery procedures to go out to the boat, or to go out to the capsule, rather, and outfit it to get onto the Dragon nest, which is on the recovery ship, and bring it in for the hatch opening, the side hatch, and recover covering the crew inside. We'll continue to provide coverage as each of the 4 astronauts egress or exit from the capsule itself. We hopefully will get some views of them, maybe pumping fists, or as long as they're feeling healthy, of course, we'll get some views of them on the recovery ship. And after that, we are looking forward to talking to some leadership from some of the respective agencies. We're expecting to have some representatives from NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency call in to provide some final comments now that we can declare a mission success. All coming up very soon, but first we have to pay attention, of course, on the mission itself, making sure that these crew members are about to return to homes, return back to Earth safely.
Dragon, nose cone secure for entry.
Endeavour copies. Nose cone secured.
Endeavour, SpaceX for entry brief.
Go for entry brief.
Shane, things are looking really good. No deltas to timeline. Vehicle is nominal. We're tracking no issues for entry. Entry targeting is also nominal. Note that you may see the landing site slightly off in the world view. That is expected and nominal due to the entry purge, and entry guidance will clean that up, so that's nominal. There's no deltas to weather. The recovery fast boats have been launched, and they're awaiting arrival. I'll copy.
Great news all around. Thanks, Chris, and we copy all.
We copy. Thank you.
Further affirmation that everything continues to look good. We did have a successful deorbit burn, and so we're just really in a waiting period right now before we begin that entry coming up in approximately 10 minutes when the crew themselves will enter into the Earth's atmosphere and the heat shield being pointed in the right direction. And the vehicle itself will slow down over the course of about 7 minutes until they get on the other side into the Earth's atmosphere, and we can talk to them again, slowing down from 17,000 miles an hour to about 350 miles an hour. That briefing was spectacular, Andy. It sounds like the weather is cooperating, and all of the recovery teams are in place. In fact, the fast boats that we were talking about earlier have already deployed. We are getting ready to bring these guys home.
Yeah, there are really no changes in what we were expecting, or what we heard prior to the deorbit sequence. So in that sense, everything was great leading up to the deorbit sequence, and everything remains great right now for crew splashdown and recovery. So again, we've been hearing nothing but good news all broadcasts. We are about 5 minutes away from slewing of the Dragon to orient it correctly, and then a few minutes after that from anticipated loss of signal. Again, that communications blackout period due to the plasma buildup around the Dragon capsule.
So a lot's going to happen. Let's go through the sequence of events here while we have a little bit of time as we're waiting for that slew, of course, and then, of course, the entry sequence itself. Once the Dragon slews or orients itself right in the precise position where the heat shield is pointed in the right direction, Andy, as you mentioned, we're going to enter into a period where we will lose the signal, and that's just because of the plasma that's building up on the outside of the spacecraft. Communications can't get through, so the plasma is building up because we are using the atmosphere itself to slow us down. We're going about 17,000 miles an hour now, and we need to slow down quite a bit eventually to get us to about 15 miles an hour. So the bulk of that will happen during the entry into Earth's atmosphere. It'll shave off from 17,000 miles an hour to about 350 miles an hour. From there will be a sequence of parachute deployments. First with the drogue chutes that'll perform the initial slowdown from 350 miles an hour to, I think it was, you said, about 120 miles an hour. And then from there, it's only a matter of seconds, about 40 seconds after drogue chute deploy, that those will be cut off, and the 4 main parachutes will deploy from the Dragon itself, slowing it down to about 15 miles an hour. We are aiming right on time for a glass-like, we've heard lake, I've heard the word pool, wave conditions out at Pensacola, Florida, look absolutely pristine. So things are looking pretty good for us so far.
So after splashdown, we just heard that the fast boats are on their way to the recovery site. There are 2 of them. The first fast boat will approach the Dragon capsule that's in the water and do a couple of things. Really, a lot of safety checks to make sure there isn't any ordinances or any type of chemicals in the air. They'll also do a vehicle integrity check to make sure things are looking great on the vehicle, and then give the go for the rest of the recovery team to approach the vehicle. The other recovery vessel, as long as that first fast boat is able to do its job, the other fast boat will go ahead and recover the main chute that's in the water. If that first fast boat, for whatever reason, motor failure, who knows, cannot do their job, it serves as a redundant vehicle. From there, a rigger who's typically approaches the vehicle on a jet ski will approach the vehicle and actually physically climb up on top of the Dragon capsule. They carry with them a lot of hardware, a lot of hoisting equipment that they'll need to attach to the capsule. And this is really to prepare the vehicle to be, again, lifted out of the water. There is a larger recovery vessel that has a sort of hoisting a crane of sorts on the back of it, and there's a platform or nest that the recovery vessel will hoist the Dragon capsule out of the water, place it on the nest, secure it in place. From there, a couple more checks will happen, and then we can finally get to see the crew egress the Dragon capsule.
That's right. The nest itself moves a little bit further in.
SpaceX for crew entry preparations.
Hey, SpaceX, our tablets are secured, restraints are tightened, visors are down.
We copy all. Thank you. Approximately 4 minutes, 30 seconds until anticipated comm blackout. We'll see you on the other side at 0326.
Copy 0326. Talk to you then.
4 minutes, 30 seconds takes us to 7:20. Right on the money, 7:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:20 p.m. Eastern. So that's the comm blackout that we were talking about. It's a 7-minute period where we're really in the atmosphere at that point. The heat shield is doing its job of dissipating the 3,500 degrees of heat that's surrounding the vehicle at that time and slowing the vehicle down to 350 miles an hour. So everything is happening right on cue. 7:20 p.m. is when we're expecting that loss of signal. It is an estimate, so there might be a variation of a couple of seconds, couple of minutes. We'll stand by for that 7-minute period. So we'll be looking at approximately 7:20 to 7:27.
Yeah, and again, as we get closer to the end of the blackout communications period, we typically hear either Dragon or ground pinging each other to make sure that they do have signal acquisition. So again, 7 minutes, and we'll be with you the entire way for signal acquisition. Shortly after that, the drogue chutes will deploy. That happens at about 18,000 feet, and then at 6,500 feet, that's when the main chutes deploy. So we talked about deployment in terms of speed,
right?
But there are sensors on the Dragon vehicle that detect both velocity and pressure, and they know basically exactly when to deploy. So again, the Dragon vehicle, super intelligent and basically pilots itself. That's why even through this blackout period, the Dragon knows where it's at. It knows where it needs to go. So the crew is in good hands.
An automatic flight all the way. It really started about 8 hours ago when the Dragon itself, more than 8 hours ago at this point, undocked from the International Space Station, the Zenith port, and backed up to about 220 meters, an automatic procedure, followed by an automatic fly around. In fact, the crew were really hands-off throughout that whole period. The commander, Shane Kimbrough, and pilot Megan MacArthur were in their seats monitoring the entire procedure, while Thomas Pesquet was at the forward window that was pointed right at the International Space Station, taking pictures for about an hour and a half as it circled the International Space Station. We got awesome pictures of the International Space Station. I'm anticipating, I haven't seen them yet, but I'm definitely looking forward to them. All of that was automatic. And then, of course, the departure burns that got us to break away from the keep-out sphere and the approach ellipsoid that surround the International Space Station and get us into lower altitude, about 10 kilometers below the station, which we were at for quite some time, followed by the departure phase burn. We had a good trunk jettison, claw separation trunk jettison, and then, of course, the super important deorbit burn, all right on time. This has been a fantastic flight so far.
So we are just 25 minutes away from splashdown. And so, again, we are going to be entering that blackout communications period. But once we're on the other side, so to speak, of that, things happen very, very quickly. Drogue chutes deploy, main chutes deploy, and we're in the water just a few minutes later. And you mentioned, Gary, the WB-57 is up in the air. It is equipped with imaging technology that will be able to get pretty much the first views of the Dragon capsule on its return back to Earth. So we do expect to see that great footage here in a couple minutes as well.
We're about 30 seconds from the anticipated loss of signal. This is really the beginning of a 7-minute period where the crew themselves will be we're hearing from the Dragon teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne. They're starting to see some drag, so we are now making contact with the upper limits of the atmosphere right now. That's going to be slowing the vehicle down quite a bit, now seconds away from the anticipated loss of signal. So we're in the expected period now. That was the anticipated loss of signal. So the clock starts approximately now until about 7:27 p.m. Pacific, 10:27 p.m. Eastern. Now in the blackout and entry period, and we did hear some initial confirmation from the Dragon teams here. They're starting to see some drag, so we'll see the vehicle slow down here quite a bit.
During this re-entry phase, the team is going to be experiencing deceleration. Right now, they're going through that, as well as when the parachutes deploy. The seats actually will rotate themselves to about 26 degrees to make sure that the crew is oriented properly for when the chutes deploy. So during the downhill phase, very similar G-forces experience, about 3.5 to maybe anywhere to like 4.5 Gs. Right. The crew is definitely going to be anticipating that, and that's definitely part of their training and knowledge.
So we're standing by. We are in the blackout period right now. This blackout period expected to last an additional 6 or so minutes until we hear some of the first calls from the crew inside Dragon. Now slowing down from 17,000 miles an hour to about 350 miles an hour when we hear them on the other side of this blackout period. Again, we have a WB-57 high-altitude aircraft that has deployed with an imaging system on board to get those initial views using infrared cameras that are on board. So even though it is nighttime, as long as the vehicle is able to identify and track the vehicle, which with the infrared camera will be easy, just look for the hot thing that just came from the atmosphere. It'll be able to get those initial views and confirmation of the status of the vehicle, the very first confirmation, which is very critical to the teams monitoring the operations, and of course the recovery teams that are out in the Gulf right now. Fast boats have been deployed, so we got confirmation of that. The helicopters have landed on the Go Navigator recovery vessel, and the teams are on the vessel right now, getting ready to welcome the crew on board once the fast boats get out to the capsule and rig it with some of the equipment that's necessary to hoist it on board using the A-frame on the Go Navigator spacecraft. We are really in the critical critical period right now, just eagerly awaiting, I think all of the teams are, the comms at the end when we have an acquisition of signal from the crew and some of the first views of the spacecraft itself and confirmation of the next sequence of automatic events, which are the deployment of the parachutes.
Yeah, and the Earth's atmosphere certainly does make it easier for the WB-57 to spot the hot thing. It is excess of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so right. It should be able to spot it in the sky. There should be nothing else like it at this time. We're, again, a couple of minutes away from starting to exit that phase where we're seeing a lot of plasma, and so we are expecting pings from Dragon or ground to try to get that acquisition of signal. So again, I mentioned things are going to be happening very, very quickly as soon as we get out of here. Gary, we are under 10 minutes until splashdown.
I cannot wait. This is a very dynamic period, so we are listening very closely to all of the different sequence of event, because as you're saying, Andy, a lot is going to happen. We're more than halfway through this expected blackout period, an expected 7-minute period. Of course, there might be some variation, but we're expecting an acquisition of signal and initial communications from the crew before we see the deployment of the drogue parachutes and main parachutes. There's about maybe about 2 minutes difference from when we should first hear from the crew themselves at about 7:27, and about 7:29 p.m. Pacific is when we should see the drogues and the main chutes deploy. And again, I say both of them at 7:29 because that's how fast that sequence is. It's about 8-second deployment from of confirmation of the drogue chutes themselves, and 40 seconds later, the main chutes are out. It's very, very quick.
So really, any minute now, we are expecting anticipated acquisition of signal to reconnect that communications line between the spacecraft and the folks here on the ground at Earth.
From this moment in time, about a minute left in the anticipated period. Again, it's not an exact science. There might be some variation. We might hear from them early. We might hear from them late. It just depends on a couple of different factors. But we're all eagerly at the edge of our seats right now, just standing by, waiting to hear from the crew. So far, things looking good. And we'll continue to track it as we enter the final moments of this blackout period. We're getting WB views, the first views of Crew Dragon. Look at that tail. That's the 3,500 degrees.
Yes.
Look for the hot thing, right?
It is the hottest thing in the sky right now. That is such a, it's literally lighting up the
Endeavour,
sky.
SpaceX, come check.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And Dragon, we've got you. Expect automated parachute deployment, and we have you on visual.
Automated shoots.
Wonderful to hear from the crew on the other side of the blackout period. The WB-57 high-altitude aircraft providing that thermal imaging. We saw the tail of the entry of the vehicle itself. Absolutely
Dragon,
beautiful.
GPS converge. Expect nominal altitude for drogues.
Copy GPS, nominal altitude.
So again, nominal altitude for drogue deployment. That happens at about 18,000 feet. Again, good news after good news, Gary. Things are looking great for Crew 2 return.
I am loving this flight. That altitude expected 1 minute from now. Right as anticipated, Andy.
Dragon, brace for drogue window.
We're braced.
The thermal imaging system on board the WB-57 is getting us great views of the capsule, but should give us equally good views of the drogue deployment, expected seconds from now.
The capsule is traveling about 350 miles an hour, and the drogue chute's job is to slow it down to about 120.
Drogues deployed. Confirmation. That'll slow us down from 350 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour.
Dragon, visual on 2 healthy drogues. Descent rate nominal.
Copy, great news.
So in about 30 seconds, the main chutes are going to come out. There are 4 of them, and they deploy at about 6,500 feet. Oh, Gary, look at this. This is an excellent view of the drogue parachutes.
There it is. Drogue separation. Main chute deploy. We'll wait for confirmation of 4 healthy mains.
Dragon, visual on 4 healthy mains. Descent rate nominal.
Copy, great news, 1,000 meters.
We copy 1,000.
You really can't ask for anything better. We got confirmation of, you heard on the loops there, 4 healthy mains. Descent rate is nominal. That means we are expecting splashdown 3 minutes from now. Visually, you can see one of the mains taking slightly longer to inflate.
Meters.
But the teams are tracking that as a nominal inflation rate, and the descent rate is as expected. We do have 4 healthy mains, and we are expecting an on-time splashdown.
600 meters.
We copy 6.
So 600 meters. This is a better shot of those 4 healthy main parachutes attached to the Dragon spacecraft Endeavour as it continues to descend.
400 meters.
The rate is as expected, 400 meters from splashdown. $300 meters.
200 meters, braced.
We copy 200 embracing.
Standing by for confirmation of splashdown.
Splashdown.
SpaceX splashdown and mains release.
Copy, we heard the main.
Endeavour, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home to planet Earth.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be back to planet Earth. Thanks to the NASA and JAXA teams. It was an honor to represent you and work with your family. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:33 p.m. Pacific, 10:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 4 astronauts of Crew 2, Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Aki Hoshide, and Thomas Pesquet, now safely returned to Earth. Confirmation that the main parachutes have been cut, and you can see from the thermal imaging camera that the fast boats are already on their way to meet up with Crew Dragon Endeavour, now splashing down off the coast of Florida for the second time.
3, we think we're...
Hey Shane, you're coming in broken, but we see stable 1.
Copy, great news.
Stable 1 is the configuration that we were hoping for. Stable 1 means it's in the ocean upright and as expected.
So the teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away.
SpaceX Endeavour, we're going to raise our...
And Dragon, please repeat.
Yeah, we're going to raise our visors if you got that.
Hey, go for visor raise.
So it looks like the astronauts inside are going to be lifting those visors. The recovery team has been waiting about 3 nautical miles away. So it is going to take them a little bit of time to make their way to Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas inside of Dragon. Quick rundown of what is to come. So about a minute and a half after splashdown, Mission Control here in Hawthorne will give the go for safe approach. About 2 minutes away, 2 minutes from splashdown, the approach boat begins its inspection. We are expecting that ordnance and hypergol check to complete around the L plus 12-minute mark, around the L plus 30-minute mark.
Dragon, SpaceX, com check.
Endeavour has you loud and clear, SpaceX.
We have you loud and clear as well. We stopped the boat. We have you much better now.
So some good comms checks on screen right now. That is the Dragon capsule in the background, upright and stable in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's a boat that is heading towards it. So at about L plus 30 minutes, the Dragon rigging is expected to complete. Again, rigging is where an employee as part of the recovery team will physically climb on top of Dragon and attach hardware necessary to hoist Dragon up and out of the water. Recovery ships also arrive at this time at L plus 38 minutes. That's when we're expecting to lift Dragon out of the water. L plus 40 minutes, Dragon will be on deck of the recovery vessel. And then at L plus 48 minutes, we are expecting Dragon hatch to open and the crew to egress after about 6 months in space.
That is the goal, to do this in under an hour, and it seems like the crew is right where they're supposed to be, right on time. We're getting thermal images of the fast boats out near the Crew Dragon Endeavour in the wonderfully smooth waters of the Gulf of Mexico, as predicted, which is fantastic. You can see there's 2 boats that are out towards the recovery vessel once we get a smoother lock on the vehicle itself. One of them collecting the parachutes, the other doing some of the rigging that you were talking about, Andy, which is super critical to the next series of steps.
Dragon, SpaceX's go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside momentarily.
Okay, copy that. We're ready.
So we should see one of the fast boats go out really right next to the capsule. And Andy, you were describing this a little bit earlier. We'll see some personnel climb on board. That rigging equipment is hardware that they have on board, and they have to attach certain things to certain areas because the recovery vessel itself, the Go Navigator, is also moving out to...
Dragon, SpaceX, request permission to come on board via display cam only.
You're welcome on board on the display cam, SpaceX.
We copy. Thanks, Shane.
So the teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne will get a peek inside the vehicle itself, watching over their shoulder. The crew themselves really are just in a waiting position. Their seats were rotated for chute deployment and for splashdown, so they're in a slightly more upright position. Although they're not completely upright, it just help them to brace. You heard that a couple of times over the Dragon to Ground calls, brace for those chute deployments and for the splashdown itself. But really, they're in just a waiting posture at this point as the recovery teams do their job. It'll take the Go Navigator recovery vessel, which we're getting some of the images from right now, the thermal images. It takes it quite a bit to get out to the capsule itself, about 30 minutes, which is why we have the fast boats. Fast boats doing a lot of the work ahead of time to prepare it so that really when the Go Navigator arrives right next to the spacecraft, it is ready to hoist onto the recovery vessel and onto the Dragon nest.
You can see that each of the boats are outfitted with spotlights to make sure that they can, again, do all of their functions properly, as this is a nighttime recovery out on the East Coast. But it looks like they have plenty of lighting. And this is the second time that this particular capsule has landed.
Right.
So this capsule Endeavour was used as part of the Demonstration 2 mission last year, flying Bob and Doug, and it has splashed down and been recovered once before, so this is not its first rodeo.
Really a testament to the capability of these American spacecraft that are rotating crews to and from the International Space Station as part of these expeditions. It is truly an international team. From the camera views that you're seeing right now on board the Go Navigator is teams representing NASA, SpaceX, European Space Agency, and the Japanese Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, all of them on board. Truly an international government and commercial joint effort to make something like this possible.
So this is the first fast boat. Right now it is essentially doing safety checks, making sure that ordnances and hypergalls are still not persisting in the area immediately around the vehicle. They're also doing essentially an inspection of the capsule itself to make sure that integrity-wise it is good before we start to again rig the equipment for hoisting later on tonight.
So again, it's going to take some time. We're shooting for less than an hour to bring the Dragon Endeavour onto the recovery ship and to open up the hatches and egress the crew, or take them out and bring them onto the medical facilities. I can only imagine the views that were possible from right there in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's see. We do have a call-in from Leah Cheshire, NASA Communications, who's on the Go Navigator recovery ship and was able to witness the re-entry and splashdown of Crew Dragon Endeavour. Leah, if you can hear me, tell us about your experience witnessing Dragon Endeavour splash down, bringing a crew home from the International Space Station for the second time.
Barry, I can hardly explain how amazing that this experience has been. Right now, as you said, I'm on Go Navigator. Right now, I'm at the mountain, looking forward to the fast boat towards the spacecraft. We were standing on top of the helipad where we just landed at about 9 p.m. Central, or 9 p.m. Eastern time, and so we stood back at the helipad watching the crew members streak through the atmosphere. It truly looked like a meteor, and actually at the exact same time we saw it in the crew members, we did see a meteorite in the sky. So it was an incredible moment, and I was standing next to NASA astronaut Shannon Walker, who she herself just completed this journey 6 or 7 months ago as a member of the Crew 1 spacecraft and mission. And so it's been an incredible night here on Go Navigator. We can't ask for better conditions. It's wonderful temperatures. The sea is very smooth and glassy almost. And so things are just moving really smoothly here, and teams are executing everything necessary on board.
Leah, tell me what's happening as you are witnessing it. You mentioned landing not too long ago, about an hour and a half ago on the recovery ship. Tell me what the teams have been doing. We witnessed the back end of that with the recovery boats deployed. What's been happening in preparation from your perspective to get ready for this moment?
We saw the fast boats and the jet ski pull up next to us, pretty near us, as we waited for the capsule to re-enter the water. And I actually have a very good visual of the capsule right now. And since that time, there have been several people on the ship, just making sure that all of the hydraulics and everything are ready to go to lift Crew Dragon up into the nest that is on the ship. And you'll see that as it pulls toward the platform, that they will egress. They'll then move into medical checks. So all the team members here on the boat,
Dragon, SpaceX for status
a couple
update.
of flights tonight on the helicopters, and they're ready to jump in.
Go ahead for status update.
Hypergol sweeps and unfired ordnance checks are nominal. Rigging is in progress. Approximately 5 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for a PMC as our next step.
Copy 5 minutes before lift and standing by for PMC.
All right, we're hearing private medical conference coming up.
Megan, we can hold for a minute if you'd like, just to finish the set phone ops if you'd like.
Sounds good. I will call you back in 1 minute.
All right, and we're hearing those the crew sounding healthy from inside Crew Dragon Endeavour, walking through the final steps, getting a private medical conference. Leah, one more question before we let you go and witness some of the next series of events. Of course, we're going to be following all along the way, but after the crew enters into the Go Navigator vessel and does those medical checks, what are the next steps to get the crew home, either in Houston or in the European Space Agency?
It is an incredibly excellent process. So the crew members, after they've completed those medical checks, they will board a helicopter right here on the boat within just a couple of hours of splashing down. And once that takes off, they will board a NASA jet, which will take them back to their respective hometowns, especially those families that have been off. They began their mission on the International Space Station. Everything is moving on. I can't wait to have it.
Leah Cheshire, NASA Communications, thank you for joining us and telling us a little bit about what's happening there at the recovery site. Best of luck to you. All right, that was Leah Cheshire on board the Go Navigator recovery vessel, now heading back to inside the Crew Dragon. We're getting those views right over the shoulder. The crew standing by, helmet visors up, really just in a waiting posture as we're waiting for the fast boats and the teams out there to rig the Crew Dragon Endeavour with the proper equipment to hoist the capsule itself up onto the Go Navigator spacecraft, where you just heard Leah Cheshire and the remaining recovery teams are waiting for, of course, the series of medical checks and of course, personnel representing each of the space agencies, NASA, European Space Agency, JAXA, as well as SpaceX. So again, as expected, Crew Dragon Endeavour splashing down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, right on time, 7:33 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. An incredible journey. We got a fly around of the International Space Station, documenting the exterior of the orbiting complex with digital photographs. The first time we've done that since 2018 with a Soyuz survey that was done. A lot of elements of the space station have been added since, so we'll be able to document that and check on the status of areas that can't normally be seen by some of the exterior cameras, as well as the robotic arm. You see, we are getting views from inside Capsule Endeavour. The crew really just poised, seated, with their seats rotated slightly upright. You can see they still have access to some of the panels.
SpaceX for status update.
Go ahead.
Boat's turned around and making its final approach to you. Just a couple hundred meters off. Just checking in to see if you're ready for that PMC.
We are ready for the PMC.
All right, in work. Next person you hear from should be a no.
So we just got updates that the recovery vessel is just a couple hundred meters away from the Dragon capsule, and they are gearing up for the PMC, which stands for Private Medical Conference. The flight surgeon will check in with each of the crew members to make sure they are doing well, as they have just returned back to Earth after 199 days in space. Right now, this is a view of the backside of the recovery vessel. That is essentially a crane. The bottom middle section is the platform or nest where the Dragon will be hoisted up and placed upon. And that platform actually will move towards the center of the boat into essentially a platform where the astronauts can step off of. And so, again, the boat is backing up towards the Dragon capsule. You can see it in the background there, and it'll hook up all of its lines to the rigging equipment that the rigger is currently attaching on the spacecraft, and will hoist it up and get it on top of the recovery vessel.
We are not too far away from the Dragon spacecraft. It's right off of the aft end of the recovery vessel itself. So right as expected, it was expected to be a 30-minute transit.
SpaceX, I'm back with you.
Yeah, about a 30-minute transit, and they got there in 20.
I think a big part of this is you look at the seas right now, and there's effectively no movement, Gary. Leah described it, witnessing it firsthand. It is glass-like.
Pristine, yeah.
Which makes really for the recovery operations just that much easier.
Really one of the very critical reasons why we are in an indirect handover posture. Again, the Crew 2 astronauts landing in the Gulf of Mexico before Crew 3 launched, it was really for this reason. It was because the weather at this moment in time was predicted to be as smooth and as fantastic as the weather predictions forecasted. So again, the crew had a private medical conference that was an initial assessment before the docs on board have access to pull them out of the spacecraft. They have a pretty good idea of what to expect whenever they pull them out, so they'll know the right precautions to take and what's needed for each individual crew member. That, of course, privatized because of the medical reasons, but that is why we have medical personnel on board the recovery spacecraft, medical facilities on board, I'm sorry, not the recovery spacecraft, the recovery vessel, and medical facilities there as well. And of course, it'll be a time for the docs to do those initial checks before they, what's anticipated, will fly each of the crew members out on a helo back to shore, where there are planes staged for them to bring them back home. It's not going to be a very long transit at all until we have some crew members back home. Shane, Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Aki Hoshide, all planned to go on a NASA plane back to Houston. They'll land in Ellington Field, not too far away from the Johnson Space Center there, where they'll get to meet up with their family and friends, of course. Thomas Pesquet will board a separate plane and head over to Europe for the facilities over at the European Space Agency to do something similar. So we're continuing to provide coverage, even though the Crew Dragon and the crew inside have splashed down safely in the Gulf of Mexico at right on time, 7:33 p.m. Pacific, 10:33 p.m. Eastern. We'll continue to provide coverage until they egress or exit from the spacecraft itself. And once all 4 crew members are on board, we're expecting to get some calls from representatives of each of the space agencies of the astronauts that are on board Crew Dragon Endeavour now. JAXA and ESA all calling in to provide some remarks after a successful mission and return of all 4 crew members back to planet Earth.
And this here is a live view inside of the Dragon capsule. The crew members are inside, and really, Gary, as you mentioned, they are just waiting for the recovery team to do their job, hoist the Dragon out of the water before they can egress the vehicle.
From this view inside Crew Dragon Endeavour, over on the right side, Megan MacArthur, the pilot for the Crew 2 mission. You can see that little black antenna sticking out from her seat. She's on a satellite phone right now talking with the teams over in Mission Control Houston, getting confirmation that everyone's saying hi to the crew, checking in. Sounds like they're doing very well. If you remember back in the Demo 2 mission, it was a test mission for using Crew Dragon Endeavour, but really to verify that the SpaceX Crew Dragon was ready to carry crews as part of regular crew rotation missions to and from the International Space Station. As part of that, they used the satellite phone as one of the checks and measures to ensure that the crew had the capability to use the satellite phone to call the various teams and report statuses. It was really a precaution and one of the test objectives of the mission itself. Now continuing that here on Crew 2.
And now the recovery vessel is that much closer to the Dragon capsule.
Dragon, SpaceX for status update.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
Rigging is complete. We're approximately 5 minutes until capsule lift.
Copy.
So you can see the person that is on the capsule itself. That is the rigger. We just got confirmation that the rigging has been completed. Now they are essentially securing the Dragon capsule to all of the rigging hardware that was attached to safely lift it up and out of the water and onto the recovery vessel.
We're seeing motion of the A-frame now, getting into position. The rigger making the final attachments necessary. If memory serves me right from previous recovery missions, the rigger will jump off the capsule into the water and make his way back into the recovery, or into one of the fast boats after he's done with this work.
Dragon, SpaceX, brace for capsule lift.
Copy, brace.
There he goes, as expected, jumped into the water. His job complete, attaching the all of the connection points to Crew Dragon Endeavour, making sure that it is stable as the A-frame itself, using hydraulic lifts, hoists Crew Dragon Endeavour out of the water onto that circular frame there you see at the base of the ship. That is the Dragon Nest.
And Garrett, we are we're slightly ahead of schedule. We were expecting Dragon lift to begin at L plus 38 minutes. It is L plus 30 minutes now. So things continuing to go smoothly as part of Crew 2's return and recovery.
Seem to get better and more efficient with each mission.
Dragon, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Personnel are completing final checks. Stand by for translation to the egress platform.
Copy, glad to board. Ready for translation.
All right, with that, we have confirmation that Crew Dragon Endeavour is on the Dragon Nest. It has been hoisted from the Gulf of Mexico and put onto the recovery ship. Where you saw the Dragon be gently placed is called the Dragon Nest. That whole section of the ship will be translated or moved in further into the ship to allow access to the side hatch. That'll be the next very important critical series of steps. There's personnel there that will work on the hatch to eventually open it. It'll be opened for the first time in 199 days. And we'll get the first glimpses of the crew inside. We should be able to witness the egress operations as well, each of the crew members getting out as long as the feeds permit. So we can welcome each of them inside. Okay.
So for those of you just joining us, the Dragon capsule has been lifted up and out of the water and is on the recovery vessel. We just saw a few shots of the crew on board the ship. What they're doing is securing the Dragon onto the ship to make sure it doesn't move as, again, it's being translated or moved towards the egress platform where the side hatch will be opened and the crew inside can egress the vehicle. The shot you see on screen right now is a view inside. It's a live shot of inside the capsule. On the left-hand side, that is Commander Shane Kimbrough, and to the right of him is pilot Megan MacArthur. What you don't see on screen is to the right of Megan MacArthur is mission specialist Thomas Pesquet, and to the left of Shane Kimbrough is mission specialist Aki Hoshide. They've had about an 8-hour journey from undocking from the International Space Station, and now they're on the recovery vessel.
Stand by for translation to egress platform.
Copy, we're ready.
There's that translation. Still getting views from inside Crew Dragon Endeavour. This is spectacular. We're less than 40 minutes after the Dragon itself splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico for the second time. Now, just again, less than 40 minutes later, the crew has been hoisted onto the recovery ship, and the Dragon nest itself has been translated over to the egress platform. The next series of steps will be personnel on the recovery vessel that are specialized in opening up that side hatch. Will do so. We have medical doctors on board that will take care of them after that. They'll provide initial medical care and assessment, egressing the crew from outside the Dragon and putting them into medical facilities that are on board to conduct a series of initial checks before they are flown by helicopter back to shore. The recovery vessel takes quite a bit of time to get back to shore, so they'll be flown so they can get right on an aircraft and fly home within a very short period of time. Again, we're going to provide continuous coverage until all crew members have egressed the vehicle. We also have representatives of NASA, JAXA, and ESA that are scheduled to be on the line to provide comments of a successful mission after the crew successfully splashed down, egressed, and are safe on board the recovery vessel.
Dragon, stand by for side hatch opening and egress. Next call will be from the recovery team. Crew 2, congratulations. Mission control, send it off.
Hey, thanks again, Chris, to you and your team. We'll see you guys soon.
Side hatch is open.
You see the waves coming out.
Even from inside Dragon now, we're seeing some of the recovery personnel. The first humans that these crew members have seen on planet Earth for 199 days.
So I believe the recovery team is checking in with the crews to make sure they're all doing fine. We actually have to remove the footrest underneath the seats prior to the crew getting out. It just makes it a little bit easier for them to egress the vehicle with that out of the way.
We're on a great timeline right now, just 40 minutes after splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico. The side hatch is open, and there are teams inside Crew Dragon Endeavour. It's a pretty quick recovery, not bad.
Oh, this is
Live views inside Endeavour. Wonderful. Getting all 4 crew members thumbs up. They are feeling good. Live streamed from on the recovery boat. Spectacular.
So you can see some more of the footrests are coming out of the vehicle. And once all those are removed, we are expecting the crew to egress one at a time. So if you are just joining us, left-hand side of the screen, that is a view from inside of the Dragon capsule. It has been recovered out of the water and is currently on the recovery vessel. The side hatch is open, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. The recovery team are continuing to do some more checkouts and procedures before we start to see the Crew 2 astronauts egress the Dragon capsule.
Still standing by for the egress of the 4 astronauts of Crew 2. Outside of Crew Dragon Endeavour, you can see stationed over to the left there is a stretcher, part of the nominal procedure. Once they are egressed from the vehicle, they'll be put into the stretcher and taken over to medical facilities. This is a standard precaution that's been exercised for each of the crew recovery missions so far. First crew member being egressed from Crew Dragon Endeavour. Got witness some applause there from some of the recovery personnel as well. It's hard to tell which crew member that was. And we got confirmation that was Megan MacArthur. That was the pilot of the Crew 2 mission, the first crew member egressed from inside Crew Dragon Endeavour. Next out is Commander Shane Kimbrough, outside of Crew Dragon Endeavour, being translated over to the stretcher per nominal procedure. Waves, smiles on his face. A fantastic journey. 199 days in space, splashing down on time.
here comes the third member to egress the capsule. This is Aki Hoshide. Some fist bumps and smiles from Aki. Again, after 199 days in space, returns to Earth.
All crew members flashing the peace sign for Crew 2. I love it.
And that leaves one more member inside of Dragon. That is Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency. And here comes Thomas. Oh.
That's the ESA doc on board, checking in with Thomas Pesquet. There you go. Everybody flashing the Crew 2.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes.
Fist bumps, high fives.
For posterity. So that is all 4 members of the Crew 2 team safely on a boat. I was going to say on land for a second, but they're on a boat, and they will head to all their respective places they need to go. But what a great recovery. We talked about how things were going to speed up and get more exciting, and that recovery was one of the fastest I've ever seen.
It was spectacular. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better mission. We accomplished everything and everything on time. Undocking right at 11:05 a.m. earlier today. We did a fly around of the International Space Station, went super smoothly, got some fantastic views, even on our coverage all along the way. All of the burns performed as expected. We did have an out-of-plane burn as well that was introduced just to make sure we were on the right course, but it set us up right for that deorbit burn on time. And lo and behold, as soon as we got out of that blackout period, even a little bit before, from the WB-57, those views of the streak that was the plasma building up on the outside of the spacecraft, we saw that. We saw all great shoots, drogue shoots, main shoots, all deploy with the infrared cameras and land on a glassy Gulf of Mexico. The waves were perfect, incredible wind speeds, and the recovery operations went super smooth. All in all, a fantastic mission. So we'll stand by. We're going to continue our coverage here for just a little bit. All of the crew members have egressed and are on the recovery boats, but we're going to stand by. We're hoping to hear from some representatives from each of the respective space agencies, NASA, ESA, and JAXA, and we'll just stand by and make a connection with them soon.
Yeah, so it was great to see all 4 members, again, despite 199 days in space and coming back to Earth, they came out of the capsule with smiles, thumbs up, fist bumps, and so they are definitely in good spirits, and that is always great to see.
So a little bit about what's to come. So again, we'll continue our coverage and hope to hear some remarks from some of the representatives of each of the space agencies. But right now, each of the 4 crew members are on the Go Navigator recovery vessel. They're going into some of the medical facilities that are on board, and they'll have doctors on board that are able to check them out and do an initial medical assessment, making sure that they're good to go. They're not going to remain on Go Navigator for the entire trip back. They actually have helicopters that are staged, ready to take them off. There's a helipad on the recovery vessel itself, so that helicopter will take them back over to shore, where they have planes that are staged at shore, ready to take them back to respective locations. For Shane, Megan, and Aki, they'll head back to Houston, and they'll do some additional medical assessments, some additional tests. They'll get to see their family. They'll get to go home. In just a couple of short days, they'll be working out. They'll be in the gym, getting reconditioned back for 1G, for life on Earth. Thomas Pesquet will head over to Europe to do the same thing over at the facilities over at the European Space Agency, and that will be a wrap for the Crew 2 mission.
Yeah, so they still have a little bit ways to go after egressing the Dragon capsule, but it looks like everything, again, going smoothly, especially as part of this broadcast. Again, you had mentioned, Gary, everything that was on the to-do list today has been done, and has been done on time and very smoothly.
Wonderful. So we do have some representatives from agencies online right now calling in to make some comments on behalf of the agency. First, we do have Kathy Leaders, who is the Associate Administrator for Space Operations here at NASA. Kathy, if you can hear me, your initial thoughts now that Crew 2 has safely returned to Earth after 199 days, and what it means to NASA as a space agency.
Well, I'm always amazed I can hold my breath for those last 10 minutes of reentry. You know, I mean, that is high drama right there. And like you mentioned several times, seeing those chutes come out is just an amazing thing. It is so nice to see that our SpaceX Crew 2 astronauts have safely splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Florida, aboard the Crew Dragon Endeavour spacecraft, and we've now completed the agency's second long-duration commercial crew mission to the International Space Station. And it's been such a busy but exciting time aboard the station, and which is really our home in microgravity. You know, I'm so proud of the NASA and the SpaceX team for another successful return. They continue to show that amazing amount of dedication to each phase of the mission and just safely and methodically moving forward and conducting the mission. It's just amazing. You know, we originally were planning to launch our Crew 3 mission for a short overlap on station with Crew 2, but, you know, we ended up bringing Crew 2 home first. The team really carefully balanced each decision, and as we looked at which was the safer opportunity, we decided to bring the crew home first, given the weather conditions. And as you can see tonight, they were great. Like people said, it was like a lake out there, a very calm lake. So this was the best decision we could have made, and it was just great to see the crew exiting that spacecraft this evening. You know, as you folks have talked about, the mission set a record for the longest space flight by a U.S. crewed spacecraft. The crew members were actually in their 200th flight day, even though they did complete 199 full days in orbit, which surpassed the 168 days set by SpaceX's Crew 1 mission earlier this year. Not that any of those crew members count. The Crew 2 mission, you know, launched April 23rd on a Falcon 9 rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, and then docked to the Harmony module's forward port of the space station on April 24th, nearly 24 hours after liftoff. You know, the Crew 2 mission has traveled over 84 million miles during the mission while their stay on orbit, and completed over 3,000 orbits around the Earth. And during their time on orbit, they have contributed to a host of science and maintenance activities, scientific investigations, technology demonstrations, and multiple public engagement efforts while onboard the ISS vehicle. They've studied how gaseous flames behave in microgravity, and one of my favorites, as an ex-New Mexico person, grew hatch green chilies in the station's plant habitat facility and ate space tacos. They installed free-flying robotic assistants and even donned virtual reality goggles to test new methods of exercising in space, among many other scientific activities. And the astronauts took hundreds of pictures of Earth as part of the Crew Earth Observation Investigation, which was one of the longest-running investigations aboard the space station, which contributes to tracking of natural disasters and changes to our home planet. And most importantly, they did that fly-around on the way home to have us check out the state of the ISS one more time. They conducted 4 spacewalks to install, deploy, and otherwise prepare for installation of our new ISS rollout solar arrays. And they also saw the arrival of 7 spacecraft to the space station and 7 spacecraft departing during their 6-month stay. Station is the hub up there, our international hub. So this splashdown of Crew 2 comes just before the launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew 3 mission. The return looked spotless. I know folks will be wondering about that one lagging main parachute, and the team will be going off and looking at how the loading was on the chutes and understanding that behavior. It is behavior we've seen multiple times in other tests, and usually happens when the lines kind of bunch up together until the aero forces kind of open up and spread the chutes. And the thing that makes me feel a little bit more confident is that the loading and the deceleration of the spacecraft all looked nominal for us, which is good news. But we're making this an exciting week for us. And, one of the key things we'll be doing at our launch readiness review for the Crew 3 mission coming up, we'll be working through that. That launch readiness review is tomorrow starting at 7 p.m. And my OCOM colleagues would be kicking me under the desk right now if I didn't tell everybody. We'll be doing a post-launch readiness review press conference tomorrow evening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So once again, thank you for watching. I can't tell you how excited I am to see all 4 of the crew members back on Earth, and I'm looking forward to launching another set of 4 this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator for Space Operations here at NASA. We also have on the line Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General for the Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate at JAXA. Mr. Sasaki, your thoughts on the successful return and the completion of the Crew 2 mission?
Thank you for the introductions. First of all, on behalf of JAXA, I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to the NASA leadership, SpaceX, our international partners, ESA, CSA, Roscosmos, and all the colleagues who have devoted to the successful mission while overcoming the tough time under COVID-19. I'm really relieved that all the crew members came back home safely to Earth, and I do believe they have brought tremendous courage and hopes for all of us through this successful mission. Aki Hoshide served as the commander and led the Expedition 65 and 66 missions over 5 months. During his on-orbit stay succeeding astronaut Soichi Noguchi, Aki has completed his EVA with ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet and contributed to the upgrade of the ISS, including the installation of MLM. Aki and the entire team faced various challenges during their stay, and they have overcome with great communication among the crew members and with ground team. It proves us again with the importance of teamwork and international cooperations. I'm also pleased that we, JAXA, along with Aki, have conducted various activities to promote space explorations, basic research, as well as commercialization of low Earth orbit. Every time we see a successful mission like this, we are getting one step closer to achieve our common goals towards space exploration using the Gateway and on the lunar surface, and also bringing further benefits to Earth through the utilization by the ISS. Next fall, JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata will be on board the Crew 5, followed by Satoshi Furukawa's long-stay mission in the coming years. I hope that the Aki's experience will be succeeded to contribute to our endeavors towards space exploration and human space flight. Once again, congratulations to all of you the safe return and wishing the successful launch of Crew 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General for the Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate at JAXA. So that will do it for us. That is the comments that we have from the respective agencies. Thank you so much for calling in and providing those comments. Well, now that Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas are safely back on planet Earth and getting checked out by NASA medical teams and, of course, teams from the respective international agencies, we are going to wrap up our live coverage of their historic return. This all kicked off on April 23rd, 2021 from historic Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After a successful liftoff and separation from Falcon 9, Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas made a 24-hour flight on board Dragon to the International Space Station. Since arriving at the space station, they spent nearly 6 months as members of Expedition 65 and 66 executing science experiments, spacewalks, and repairs while aboard the orbiting laboratory.
And then their journey home began earlier today on the 8th when they closed the hatch to Dragon and undocked hours later at 11:05 a.m. Pacific time. After 4 successful departure burns and a phasing burn to line up their orbit, Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas rested for a few hours before waking up to prepare for re-entry this evening. They didn't rest. They went straight to
they had a meal.
They had a meal, basically,
yeah.
and donned their spacesuits. We then jettisoned the Dragon's trunk and performed our final on-orbit maneuver, the deorbit burn, at 6:39 p.m. Pacific time to send Dragon on the path home. The spacecraft re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and slowed its descent with successful deployments of 2 drogue parachutes and 4 mains, with the final splashdown occurring off the coast of Pensacola, Florida at 7:33 p.m. Pacific time. Now, following successful splashdown, we saw SpaceX recovery experts move in and prepare Dragon Endeavour for its lift onto the recovery vessel. And just a little less than an hour following splashdown, we saw Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas make their way out of the Dragon and into the recovery ship's medic facilities safe and sound.
So they're on the recovery vessel right now. Next, they'll catch a helicopter flight back to shore while they're transferred to aircraft that will take them home. Shane, Megan, and Aki will take a NASA plane for a short flight back to Houston, and Thomas will fly back to Europe. And they'll be reunited with their families and then bring this historic flight to an end. It has been an honor and a privilege to share their journey with you all as we continue this new era in human spaceflight, but we have more coming up soon.
That is right. SpaceX and NASA are already looking forward to the next mission when Crew 3 launches, currently targeted just a few days from now on November 10th. We'll have an indirect handover with 3 people on board the station for a short period of time as we continue this regular cadence of flying astronauts on American rockets from the Kennedy Space Center. Again, it has been an incredible honor, Gary, and joy to share this mission with the public, and all the teams from SpaceX and NASA continue to work hard to keep America leading the world in human spaceflight. Continue to follow SpaceX and NASA online and on social media for updates for the very latest on crew and cargo flights to and from the International Space Station.
And we'll continue to share the progress of Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas as they travel back home on social media. So we'll say thanks once more for tuning in and cheering on Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas as they return home. And we'll see you again very soon when we'll once again be sending astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil on NASA's SpaceX Crew 3 mission. Until then, so long.